Hey everyone, welcome to the Parts Girl podcast. I have Jordan with me today with ASOTU. Welcome, Jordan.
Oh, Kaylee, thank you for having me. This is so awesome to spend some time with you, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get more of your story and just what you're passionate about. And, before we started recording, you were telling me a little bit about it. And I was like, wait, stop. Don't tell me anymore.
I didn't save it, right?
Yeah, because there was already questions. I was like, I want to ask you this. Okay, so recap so we don't have to go through the whole thing and,
Sure.
just dive right in. So you started in sales. That's where you started in independent, right? It was independent shop. It wasn't like a
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It wasn't a new car franchise. It was an independent, local to where I grew up, to where I was from. And my best friend's dad worked there.
Yeah.
And he was, at that time, a sales manager, and he did front-end sales to F&I. So he was like an A to Z process for that, for him. But it was so cool to see that he came home talking about these relationships that he had. And he said, I helped this person do this. I helped this person do that. And I guess the icing on the cake was he got to drive a demo home. And that's, if you're 15 and you see that, you're like, that's the coolest thing ever. And that's a horrible reason to get into car sales. But that's kind of what triggered it. So when I was done with college, I went and asked to work for him, and that's how it started. It's amazing.
Wow. Okay. And then for how long did you do it?
Yeah. So in sales, let's see, I did sales for about 6 years, about 6.5 years working with him. So there was actually a point where he transitioned to buy his own independent location. So I actually transitioned with him. So I spent about 3 years at one and then 3 years at the next with him. And then after that, I transitioned into marketing at a local automotive group. And they had franchise new lots. So they had Toyota, and at the end they had 2 Chevy, and then they also had 2 used locations. So it was an automotive group with 5 locations.
Wow. Okay. And I wanted to ask, I feel like I have a similar experience where I wanted to do sales, but when I started, I went and did other things first.
Sure.
When I worked for PartsEdge, I did operations, and then I was like, I'm going to go into real estate. But
yeah,
I want to try that too. But what did you like about the sales experience, and what didn't you like about being in sales?
Yeah, so it's funny, I went to college, spent 4 years doing that, and then after I got into it, I would tell people that I was a car salesperson at a small place called German Concepts, and they were like, dude, you did used cars, you went to college, you're so much better than that. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is so cool to do what I do. I get to talk to people all day long, and I get to find out what they're looking for and find a way to meet their needs and really find a way to help move them forward. And I think that's what was cool, was that when you really understood that sales process, someone doesn't just show up at a car lot to be there. You don't go somewhere like that just to hang out. You're there to buy a car.
Yeah.
But most consumers, when they show up there and you approach them and you start having a conversation with them and trying to figure out what they're looking for, they're so apprehensive to someone being involved in. And if you do it the right way, you can overcome that uneasiness very quickly, just when they realize that you're really on their side and you're really trying to get to the same conclusion as them. Their goal is to buy a car. I know that sounds stupid, but their goal is to buy a car because they're at a car lot. But they're not gonna tell you that.
No.
That's how it is, But I can imagine the same thing with you.
That's how it's always been, though.
Exactly.
With anyone that wants to buy something, okay, when you go into a store, sometimes you might be browsing, but you're there to buy something, and people ask, can I help you with something? You're like, no,
exactly,
I'm just looking, but you really know what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I don't know if it's worse for a male or female, if you're in Target. So perfect example, I was at Target today, and I was looking for, so it's going to be, we're doing a trunk or treat event with my wife's work tomorrow. My daughter, she's 4, she needed tights that were thicker because it's going to be cold tomorrow. So I know what I'm there for. Somebody asked me, can I help you find what you're looking for? And I was like, no, I'm fine. And I kid you not, I wandered around for 30 minutes looking for them myself. That just happened today.
Yeah, we do it all the time. Why do we do that?
I don't know. We're weird. Isn't that crazy?
But you're right. It's once you can overcome that, and buying leggings or stockings is so little, Maybe
Yeah.
I actually did want to browse around Target and see all the decor and stuff.
I know, but that's what was crazy too. I was on a time limit, so I had to get somewhere. I had to go find it quick. I already knew what I was looking for. I didn't want to shop. And I
Oh.
still didn't ask for help. How stupid, Kaylee. Isn't that nuts?
It's not.
But that's how people are.
No, we are. But then you transitioned into marketing, and that's where you like. I don't want to say really fell in love, but it sounds like that was like more for what you were looking for, or it actually led you to where you are now. Really.
Yeah. So like, it's funny because you look back and you see what led you to where you're at, and you're like, shoot, man, like it's easy to see that. They always say hindsight is 20/20. But seriously, you look at that and you say, okay, here's where I'm at now. I work at ASOTU, Automotive State of the Union. We're a media company. We do live events like ASOTUCon. We do a daily community email that you can actually subscribe to at ASOTU.com. We do a TV series called More Than Cars. We do webinars. We do all these great things that really push automotive retail forward. And it really continues to like inspire automotive retail to be the best versions of themselves. That's really our goal. And again, your question was like, looking back, it feels like it's perfect because, okay, automotive retail sales, that's as frontline as it gets. You know, through that, like learning the F&I process, being able to do like A to Z on an entire deal, all that stuff, going to marketing. And I feel like when I made that transition to doing digital marketing and being a part of that at a local owned auto dealership, I was extremely lucky because of who I worked for. He was our GSM, but really he was like a variable ops director. That's a better title for him, even though we called him our GSM.
Oh yeah.
And then like I had a super great coworker of mine that became like such a great mentor who handled our traditional stuff. So we always split it up, traditional and digital, which like, you know, when you're on a team and it's great people that you work with, it works so well.
Yes.
And that's what he did. And so my mentor's name was Sam Sweden. And he was in automotive. This is going to sound crazy. He was in automotive for 60 years.
Whoa.
And this mentor of mine and our variable ops director, my boss, they both worked together every day for 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
And when you're a part of a powerhouse like that, like,
yeah.
I know it sounds stupid, Kaylee, but like I rode their coattails. And I'm okay saying that because they were such freaking rock stars at what they did. And so Sam would always tell me, I'll get to this part in a second, but Sam would always tell me, he said, hitch yourself like, you know, like a trailer, hitch yourself to a star until you become one. And I'm not saying that I've arrived. I do not take it that way. But during that entire time, I was hitched to stars because they were so fine-tuned on sales process. Like, people will look at that and say they were old school. Yes. That's what they did for 40 years together all the time. But like, they were so fine-tuned on it. And they knew what to do. They knew how to handle customers. They knew how to put them first. And they also knew how to take care of their staff and lead them in the right direction. They knew how to manage well. They knew how to take care of small details, like all that stuff. And all this being said, my mentor, Sam, he passed away last December. And that was a huge loss. And I look at that and I say, those 3.5 odd years of my life, those were some of the best times that I spent with him. And I look at that and I say, yes, he might have been selling cars like it was 1984, but that's fine with me because I got to do it with him.
Oh, really cool. That's really sweet. And you know, selling cars like it was 1984 isn't necessarily a bad way of doing it.
Yeah, it depends on your market, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We'd always joke and be like, dude, it's Corn County here. What do you expect?
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say it's probably where you were located and that's why it worked.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man. You know what? I've been reflecting a lot on, I feel like mentorship and like just things. I think because right now, just looking at where I am now, but also like I have a little brother who's 14 and
sure.
He's kind of hitting that age where you start developing those relationships with people that are not your parents that can mentor you and help guide you.
That's right. Right? Especially at 14. Sometimes you need some guidance. Like me at 14, that kid needed a ton of guidance. I'm going to tell you that.
I think we all did at that time. And like, fortunately, I think because I started working when I was 15 and then my boss was like my mentor, and I really needed
Sure.
that because like I was like, screw my parents, I don't want to listen to them.
Yeah,
They're
that's
a
right.
shit show.
They don't know what's up.
Yeah.
They're just being mean to me and bossing me around.
Yes. But yeah, like with mentoring and everything, I think there's going to be a point too, like with your career, maybe it's already started where you could take people in as, mentoring them. Are you starting to see that with your career? Like, being that you've been mentored and you probably have mentors now, but like, are you starting to mentor people or?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Kaylee. So like when the time comes, I need to be able to give back to automotive what automotive gave to me, whether it's through Sam, through mentors that I've had. And so here's kind of like a silly example, but I've got a mentor now that's been my friend for like 2 years. And yes, I call my mentor my friend, all that stuff. His name is Zach McVicker. And so I met him about 2 years ago. And we developed this great relationship. We would call all the time, text all the time. And he's just someone I could lean on to get guidance on for like a wide variety of stuff. And the other day I was texting him and I was like, hey, just so you know, I really look up to you. And it's really cool that you can be my mentor. And he's like, it's funny you say that because you're my mentor too. And like the way that it hit, I was like, that's really meaningful. And here's why. Because everybody that you meet, you can learn something from.
Yeah, you can.
Everybody. And like, even if it's someone you think is like a young person that's a nobody, or like, here's a perfect example. I have a 4-year-old. I know you know this.
Yeah.
Love of my life. She's 4. She's got this crazy over the top personality. I'm sure you can imagine, like, apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Where did she get that from?
Yeah, exactly. Like where? So there is stuff that she says that I'm like, wow, that's like powerful. And so her birthday was just a couple days ago, and we gave her. Oh my word! I actually have her right. She's right here. She's sleeping. We gave my daughter a puppy.
Oh my gosh.
So
you guys are crazy. And you guys are having a baby soon.
Exactly. Like we are, Kaylee, we are freaking crazy. What is wrong with us?
Yeah, what is wrong with me?
Exactly. So we gave this puppy to her and she wanted to FaceTime her grandma, so my wife's parents. And she said, Mima, Papa, I got this puppy because my mom and dad love me so much. And the way that hit, I was like, oh my gosh. And like, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. But like that 4-year-old could like put together something that was so important and so meaningful. And even that we can even tie this to Zach. I was FaceTiming Zach like 2 weeks ago about something, and Zach wanted to see Olivia. So I turned the phone around and pointed to Olivia, and Olivia said to Zach, hi, Zach. And Zach's like, oh, hi, Olivia. And then Olivia says to Zach, what do you do? Which this is something we've been working on with her, is trying to like kind of get small talk, like even like get deeper conversations, stuff like that. Question. And Zach, who is the CEO and founder of Onboardian, who helps frontline salespeople get better educated and really understand and like help people. Zach says to her, Olivia, I help people. He simplified it just like that. And Olivia's response was, my daddy helps people too. And the way that she like simplified it and was like able to deliver on that like blows my mind. And just like getting back to your main point, Kaylee, is that like you can learn something from everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a mentor as long as you're like, yeah, that's so true. Oh man, I learned so much from my daughter. Their minds, just hearing your stories, they just simplify things. I would be curious to know what she thinks I do though.
I'm gonna have to show her some of your stuff, and she'll be like, "Oh, here we go. Here's what she does."
Yeah.
Then we'll FaceTime too, and I'll be like, "Hey, here's Kaylee."
I sure, Mom.
Real quick before we move on, I want to do this real fast. So I know that most of your audience is through audio, so you're gonna have to describe this for them, okay? So one second.
And we do record the whole video, so if they want to watch the whole show.
If they want to watch the whole video, so.
Oh my gosh, the puppy is so cute. Okay, so the puppy's short and fluffy. I don't think it's going to be very big. I don't know what kind of dog. I should know, but it's cute.
My wife and I are crazy, aren't we?
We're crazy. It looks calm. It's at that calm, peaceful stage, and then a couple weeks just start destroying your whole house.
That's right. Yeah. Right now, she just can't destroy it because she can't reach stuff, right?
Yeah, she's not there yet. I'm assuming she's a girl.
Oh, man.
It's a girl dog.
It's a girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I think girl dogs are actually a little. I've had both. Like growing up, we always had girl dogs, and I have a boy dog now as an adult, and I think they have their pros and cons for both. But I think boy dogs are just like they're just so cocky.
Oh, for sure, especially on the breed. Like it just depends, you know.
Yeah, and we got the breed that. Yeah, he's got.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, you could tell.
Yes. But yeah, going back. Okay, so now I'm all distracted. I want to hold it.
I know. I'm like, bring a puppy in. Like, throw this. Like, take this show completely off the rails. Like, just bring a puppy in. It's fine.
Well, my husband's like, we need to get another dog for our dog, and we need to get a puppy for Trinity because we're having a baby too. And I'm like, no. Sure. So I'm not going to tell him about your ex.
Do not take a page out of this playbook. I'll tell you that. Like, we are crazy. Don't do it.
No, it's fun. That's what life's about. Yeah. So, okay, let's get back to this. So, mentoring.
The real reason everybody's listening, right?
Okay. So we talked about mentoring. We talked about how you got into it. Just let's get into like your passion. Like what excites you? What makes you feel like, and where does that drive come from? Like, I feel like, we have to want it. We have to work hard to like make things happen. You mentioned lucky, and sometimes I feel the same way. I feel lucky, but you also have to want it for things to happen. So
that's true.
Would you say that you are a super driven person? How, like, what does your day look like? Are you super organized and like structured?
It depends because like there's certain things where I'm super stupid organized on. And normally if you're super organized, you have a type A personality, like that person cannot handle like flexibility, changes, or like, last minute adjustments to stuff.
Yeah.
But like I can pull off both somehow. And I'm not bragging about that. But I think that like over time you realize like what your true passion is. And as long as you're doing that one thing, I don't think it matters how you do it. Sometimes it does. But like I think you can what I mean by that is you can take curveballs and you can adjust. And as long as you know where you're centered at and why you're doing what you're doing, then like it's meaningful and it's powerful. And that's what keeps you going. And I guess the short answer is maybe my mom didn't hug me enough when I was a kid. And that's why I like people. Like, who knows? Just kidding. Mom, if you're listening, I love you.
It's so funny you say that because my husband's like more of like a hugger and a loving type person. I'm not a loving person. And I grew up with
I'm surprised you're not. I mean, you have such like bubbly, like perfect personality. I'm surprised.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I mean, I like people, but I'm not super affectionate. Like my friends, like we hug when we say goodbye, but you have to really pull it out of me. Like I'm not super, like my father-in-law loves to like hug and kiss, and I'm just like, ugh.
Oh, sure.
Please don't. And
please don't do that.
Yeah. But my husband grew up with like not as an affectionate, like loving environment. And I grew up in a really like supportive environment. So it's funny.
Interesting. Yeah. So like, it's almost like he's like if it was me, you almost feel like you're overcompensating for something that you didn't get earlier, right?
Yeah. Like you saying that, but I'm sure your mom hugged you and that was a joke.
She did. She hugged me too much. Wow. Just so you know.
Well, maybe that's why it's so normal that you love like hugging people.
That's true. Yeah. Well, like I think you have to have it centered on like what you're truly passionate about. And a few things come to mind. So Jenna from Drive Centric, one of the things she posted recently was, what's your favorite quote that someone said recently? And this was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
One of the people said that luck is where preparation meets opportunity, which is awesome. And then the other one will probably come to me here in a second. I kind of went like the joking route and said the best thing that anybody ever said to me was call Jenna at Drive Centric. Like that was mine. Because like I'm friends with her now and that's how that started. But one of the other things that they said was another person said, if you do what you love, that will get you through the low points in your career.
Yeah.
Which is true.
So true.
And I look at that like daily or like yearly, whatever those waves are, those low points, I think you can overcome when you really like what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've talked about like what we do at ASOTU like over and over and over again, but there's still people that aren't aware of what we do. And it's really about wrapping our arms around the entire automotive industry and showing people what great automotive retailers are doing and inspiring others to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And whether it's industry partners, whether it's frontline automotive workers, whether it's distributors, whether it's really like anybody, even detailers or PDI technicians, like it's really about inspiring them to be the best versions of themselves. Yeah. And we do that through a lot of ways. We try to spread as much news as possible. We highlight those that are doing great things, whether at the dealership level or at the individual level. And like, that's what excites me. And like, yes, I've known what ASOTU is for a year and a half or 2 years, but like, I've only worked for them for 3 months. But I was literally like their biggest fan because of what they were doing and what they were about. And I just saw this merging path of where we could do this together. And like, that's what excites me. Okay. And it's getting the people in the right place at the right time to hear the right thing. Whether it's continuing and growing their education through stuff that's going on in automotive or new technology that's out there, or even just like sharing ideas that seem like super basic about ways we can better care for our staff. Like, that's what excites me.
It's very exciting, especially how you guys are doing it, I think is what's capturing a lot of like, because you guys are doing it in such a creative, different way that's exciting. And you're right. When you're passionate about it, even the lower times, it's like, they're not even that low.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think, how you guys, like I said, how you guys are doing it's really great. And you guys are just making waves. It's crazy how much it's grown too. I remember seeing it and like, what is this? Is this just another?
You're like, what are these boys doing?
Yeah.
What's this guy and what's this Paul guy doing? Why are they wearing hats? Why are they like twins?
Like, are they brothers? Are they twins? Like, what's going on? And then like once I like really got to know it, and then I think I told them this, like the newsletter is really what captured me because I like to. I actually don't really like to read, but I like to read if that makes sense. The newsletter because I think because it was short and it was summarized in a way and it was funny.
Yeah,
and that's right. Or I say is.
Yeah, it still is, and it's only getting better every day.
No, why did I say was?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, people would look at the newsletter and they would originally think, oh, like, this is something that's like one person threw together. But I kid you not, we have 2 full-time writers that go through that. We have additional, like, if depending on how you count it, we have up to 3 editors that go through it as well. And they look at something crazy like 300 news sites every single day to see what's trending, what's going on in automotive, and just really, like, finding the best stuff and curating it. And like, yes, they're super skilled at writing. Yeah. But I was talking to Chris Reeves, our head writer.
Yes.
Shout out to Chris Reeves. I love Chris.
Yes.
Yeah. And and like his humor is on point every single time. Yeah. And one of the things he said to me was, my job is 97% reading and 3% writing. And I was like, why? And he's like, because we want to be so educated in what we're doing and looking at all these sources and looking back to what is actually meaningful to automotive retailers. And he's got a good point. Like, they do so much research to find the best stuff, to put it in like a 4-minute reading email and use GIFs and have like a sense of humor about it. Like, it's great. I love it.
Love it so much.
Yeah. And so like people can find that at ASOTU.com if they want to subscribe to it. It's super easy. Join our community, get an email every day to see what's going on and just kind of like be a part of the fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Please subscribe to it because it's great. And
it's Kaylee's favorite email of the day.
My favorite email of the day. It makes me laugh. And then I feel like I'm like, oh, this is what's going on in auto. Like, and I can laugh about it when I'm like, oh, that's just.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Yeah. So, Kaylee, what I always love learning about, especially with hosts that are on series like this, creating media, creating content, and just really all around, like creating great, amazing things like you've done. You're connecting people. You're putting people in front of your audience. Why do you do what you do? Like, there's something that keeps pulling you back to it. And I know that there might be like there might be like an incentive or like brand like association to that, but like, why do you like doing it? Kaylee, tell me why you love this.
Okay. So it really started with like educating people and talking more about the parts world
Sure.
of things. But then it turned into, because obviously not all my guests are from the parts world, clearly,
yeah.
so we don't
Example.
talk about parts. Example. So what it really turned into is like capturing people's stories and what they're passionate about. Because I think I'm honestly so curious about, how people got to where they are, what drives them, and just having those conversations. And it seems like most of the conversations kind of go the same, but they're always so different too. Because I think of the questions as I'm interviewing. So I think that's what drives me, because I'm just curious to. And then I love how like when you go on a podcast, you almost feel famous. Like whenever I went on podcasts, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. They're like putting a picture of me and like, like talking all these cool things about me.
Kaylee, you are freaking famous. You realize that, right? You are the parts girl. There's only one parts girl in the entire world. That's you.
It's crazy. But no, I that's how I wanted people to feel like when they come on the show. Like their story matters, what their experiences are awesome, and want them to feel a little famous, because what we do with our graphic and like the artwork and describing their story and promoting them, it's like it's all about connection and really just, like I said, sharing their story. That's what I like about it.
Man, Kaylee, I love that. And there's a huge alignment between that and what we do at ASOTU and what I do personally. Like, what we do is we highlight people who are doing excellent things in automotive. And like, we have a conversation like you and I are having right now. And sometimes we do it in like podcast form. Sometimes we do it in email form. And sometimes we just do it in a private conversation, like on a phone call. And there's this moment that happens where they tell me something amazing. And I say, you realize that no one else does this, or you realize that what you're doing is groundbreaking or amazing or making an impact in your end consumer and changing their life. And they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And sometimes they realize that, sometimes they don't. But like, I think there's a hero in everybody. Whether they're the parts girl like you, who's already a hero and a star, or whether they're someone who shows up and does their job and, does very small things. And like, even so, perfect example. We had our big event, ASOTUCon, a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to point them out because that's not why they did this, but there's someone on our team that was like about details. And like, I kid you not, during the event, they picked up like a gum wrapper that was on the ground and they threw it away. And I was like, shoot, dude, that's so cool. But like, it's the details that matter to them. And they didn't pick it up and throw it away for like them. They did it because they wanted a great experience to the point where they wanted no trash on the floor. And I know that sounds like super simple and like super basic, but like, if they're willing to do that, then they're willing to do a lot of things. And again, like, I think there's a hero in everybody, whether they realize it or not. And sometimes it's up to us to bring that hero out of them and inspire them to be the best versions of themselves.
Exactly. I think, that's such a great point. A hero in everyone.
Yeah. There's this movie. In fact, I'll tell you where this came from. There's this movie called Glass. And Glass is it's a part of a movie series that M. Night Shyamalan directed. So the first one is Unbreakable, that came out in 2001. The second one's Split, that came out in 2016. Long time difference between the two. And the third one is Glass. And Glass is like the culmination of all those things coming together. And it starts with Unbreakable, which is about a superhero who doesn't know he's a superhero. And it stars Bruce Willis. And in Glass, one of the lines that he says is, belief in oneself is contagious. We give each other permission to be superheroes. That's one of like the lines that stick with me. And I'm like, shoot, man.
There's your quote. That's the quote that you were talking about.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And like the way that it hits and the way that it lands, like, I think that works with everybody. Yeah. And like, Kaylee, you might not feel like you're inspiring other people to do the same thing like you're doing, but I guarantee that what you've done with your podcast, like just in this small aspect of your life, this podcast that you're like knocking out of the park, you've inspired other people to do the same thing, whether it's that, or to be the best versions of themselves, or even just to have confidence to sit in front of a camera and do what you're doing and share your story and like hear other people. And like, that's cool to see because like my daughter who's 4 is going to be able to experience the benefit of what you're doing today.
Aw.
And that makes me super happy because it's small things that we do right now that will make an impact on the next generation. Like, yes, it's easy because it's my daughter, but I think of like your daughter and I think of all these other great things that are happening and just the opportunity for other women in automotive to be inspired by people like you is super cool, Kaylee. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're awesome at it. And just keep being you as a superhero because you already are one.
Thank you. No, I that's really, really cool to hear. And, it's inspiring to hear that, that's the way you feel that I'm doing. 'Cause, yeah, I guess I am kind of doing that.
You're doing it. There's no denying that. You can't say you're not because you are.
Well, and you guys are doing it because like we talked about, I love how you guys pull so many people in the industry and like help share their stories because that's really what it's all about is connecting with everyone. And so I guess to wrap up, because I like to keep the show at like about 30.
Oh, sure.
I want to share just like anyone who's listening who's like maybe afraid to make those connections or reach out to people, like what would you, because I love how you reach out to people. I think when you reached out to me, you created a video and then I was like, oh, I feel like I know this person.
You're like this weirdo?
I'm like, okay, I'll connect with you. But like, I'm trying to think of my question. I had someone reach out to me recently and was like, how do you get started on LinkedIn? How do you make connections? Because it's like they don't feel like they know a whole lot of people, and I'm like, I feel like I was in the same boat too. And I don't know, I just started engaging on people's comments. I didn't direct message people. Well, I tried that in the very beginning, and that was awkward.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When you like do this pitch slap and you're like, this is what I do. And they're like, who cares?
It's like request to connect, direct DM, buy my stuff.
Yeah, buy my stuff.
Yeah.
That does not work. But what would your advice be, or what's your approach? Let's just start with that. Tell us your approach.
Yeah. So like, really it depends. Like, so my approach is that I don't do it for people to fall in love with me. Do not think that at all, because it's not about making people love you. It's not about making people like you. It's about being your authentic self. And like me sending a video to you to like introduce myself, like, I don't know, that's who I am. I'm not going to apologize for that because that's okay. Like who I am. And like, yes, people love it. Some people hate it. Like if they don't know who I am, but like also like the connection part, like perfect example. I was at a chamber event earlier today for a couple hours. Like I was there experiencing like kind of like listening because they were an event, but also sitting at the back of the room, like working because I don't know. Two things. Like I can't just like sit and work. So I always have to like listen to something. And then also like if I'm ever somewhere, if I'm not having a one-on-one conversation like this, then I'm always like sitting down and work. So
yeah,
the speakers at that event, afterwards, I went up and said, hey, thanks for speaking. I know that that might have been hard for you. That might have been easy for you, but like, here's like 2 takeaways that I took away from that. And like, that's also like, again, not everybody does that. That's who I am. I want to say thank you. I want to give them like 2 takeaways to show that I was listening, but it also cements like a relationship with me and them. Yeah. Like in a very selfish way. And I say that because like, I want to keep learning more from them.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, after I met them, I sent them a request on LinkedIn. I started looking through some content and there was a lot of people, but like, again, this was only a couple hours ago and there's like 5 people that already accepted my request to connect. And like, I think it starts with people you know. Like if you really want to continue like growing, like if your connections on LinkedIn matter to you, start with people you know.
Yeah.
And then also look at people that like have a similar path. And then again, it's easy. People will look at this and say it's easy for me, but it's easy for me because like, I don't really care what I post. Like Kaylee, you've seen it. Like I post like some really weird stuff. But like, it's cool to engage with people and it's cool to connect with them. Like my random thought of like a day or like whatever it is. Like what was the one a couple days ago? It was like, random thought of the day, is it data or data? But like
Never knew that one.
in written form, they're
Yeah.
all written the same way. So you read it, it's like, is it data or data? Like you could read it that way if you wanted to, but like that was a serious question because there's so many people that like say it
Say
one way or the
data
other.
or data.
Yeah,
We'll say data.
exactly. Yeah, I say data too. And like it's interesting stuff like that. This is like also above like what most people do or are willing to do. But last year, this same time, I started a vlog series and I called it Life Is. And I did a daily vlog where I would try to create like this cohesive storyline beginning to end. I look back at it now and I'm like, dude, those sucked. But like, I love doing those because you would go home like, and you would stay up to like 2 or 3 a.m. trying to edit a cohesive storyline that you wanted to release to like people that you knew. And sometimes they fell flat on their face, but the ones that were the best were when you were just being yourself. And like you weren't trying to create something that you wanted people to like,
Yep.
but you created something that you liked. And I look back to the ones that like, also like every single one featured my daughter. So I did them every single day for like 30 days. I did a total of 60 last year. And every single one featured my daughter. Like she was at least in a single frame. And that was important to me. And like my daughter gets to grow up with that now. So like 10 years from now when she's 14, she's going to be able to go back and see those. Like, and I'm going to keep doing it. So like, yes, I'm not doing it right now, but I will continue. I promise you that.
You should.
Yeah,
because we don't have videos anymore. You know how like when they just set up the
Yeah.
video and just like let it roll? We
Yeah.
don't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. And so what I would do is, again, like I would try to create this cohesive story that I try to release every single day. And some of the best stuff was just like accidents. So perfect example. The very first one I did was with a brand new microphone that I had never used before, an external microphone that went on my DSLR. I forgot to turn the microphone on. So I have all this great footage from this local Corvette club. They were celebrating 65 years, so they spelled 65 with Corvettes.
Oh, cool.
And I had like all these like cool interactions, but I had no audio. And afterwards I was like, oh my gosh. And what I was able to create with that, with no audio, was so much better than what it would have been with audio. And I know that sounds stupid, but I go back and look at that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me sitting on my back porch narrating what that day was and like what it meant to me. And here's my daughter like talking to me while I'm recording this. And yes, I left a lot of that stuff in there because like, dude, like that's life. That's what life is. That's why I called it that. Is like, it's me discovering what life is. And again, your question was, how do people do this? Like that's above beyond what most people do. But like the point of this is be you,
Yep.
be authentic. And the more authentic you are, the less awkward it is. Because there are times where you do stuff that feels awkward. And it's because you're not being you. Be you, be great. That's it.
Don't overthink it. Just put it out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And like putting it out there on that note, this will be quick.
Yeah.
The best stuff, well, best stuff, that's relative. And that's also very subjective. But some of the most engaged with content that I've put out on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or wherever, or YouTube, was stuff that I didn't care about because it was me. And I didn't go back to see what people were saying or what people were thinking or how many people liked it. Because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I think of things like when I had a dog that passed away. And this was so this dog lived with my aunt. And dude, I was just like feeling crappy about that. And it sucked. And I shared that. And I shared why it sucked. And I shared why you shouldn't regret things, because there were a lot of things I regretted with that dog. Like,
Yeah.
man, I'm gonna have to pay you now, like, because you're like my psychiatrist, like hearing this stuff about like trauma. But like, dude, Kaylee, I cared about that dog, and I loved that dog so much, and I regretted not going to see that dog more when she lived with my great aunt, and she passed away. And one of my biggest regrets was not taking more photos with her. I had one photo with that dog, and that was the photo that I shared on that post. And it was about not having regrets and going out and doing what you should be doing and not thinking twice and like going to love someone. That's it.
And that was probably one of like the most people probably engaged a lot with that, right? Is that?
I think they did because it like in a positive way, like anytime that I create something, Kaylee, or do something or have a conversation with someone, like I really want them to leave like better than they came into it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, let's talk about that post for a second. Like, I don't want people to have regrets like I did. So my hope was, man, I'm getting like choked up thinking about this. Sorry. But I don't want them to have those regrets, and I don't want them to miss out on like loving a dog or a friend or a family member and not taking photos with them more often. And I hope that left them impacted. Shoot, man, now this is a first. I've never cried in a podcast before. Dang, shoot.
My husband's probably like, yeah, she makes
Oh
me
my
cry all the
gosh.
time.
Yeah, it's like you're the one that's expecting. Like, isn't that
I should be
like,
crying.
exactly? That's like the hyperbolic statement is that the pregnant girl's crying, not the guy that's like, on there as a guest. Like, shoot. Okay. You're my first, Kaylee. I've never cried in a podcast before. Now I have. Oh my word.
Back to that though, because I think that if you knew me,
You're like trying to do a segue now. You're like, oh shoot, how do we segue? Hey, how do we segue out of that?
Right. No, if you knew me like more, I'm like super not what's the word? I'm like morbid and like no. I'm like.
Oh yeah. Oh my word.
But I want to go back to that because that's what it's all about with sharing those experiences, because I feel like I do that too with what I share is,
yeah,
it's not all the time because there's some days where it just doesn't flow or come out, but like wanting to put that out there because you didn't want people to experience what you were experiencing, or remind them like, this is what I'm going through right now. And this is how I'm feeling, and like take pictures and, to not regret or you regret it, but like, maybe yeah, but don't regret it. Cause at least you had the one picture.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Exactly.
The cool
one
thing
is
about
better
dogs,
than zero.
yeah. And the cool thing about dogs, and I don't know, you could disagree with me, is they do come back into our lives like some way, somehow.
Oh, sure.
Like that one dog, the dog's journey,
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that if you want to cry, I'll cry because I definitely did cry about that movie.
Yeah. Well, like it's funny you say that. So that's actually why we got corgis. So the puppy we had that I showed you like 20 minutes ago, that's a corgi. We have another corgi too. That's one of the reasons that we got one is because in that movie, it's a corgi. Like that's what she looks like.
Forgot about that. I forgot what the dog looked like, but I thought like it was cool because like I really do think dogs are just like. There's something special about them. Like, I feel they've had so many lives, and we could go on a crazy.
Yeah, well, like, even on that note, Kaylee, like, I think of people like my mentor, Sam, that I talked about. You can look at that and say that, like, Sam is gone, but, like, he's not. No. Like, dude, he lives in me, and there's things that I do now because I don't want to live with the regret that he had, that he shared with me, that he said, don't do it this way because this sucks. Yep. Okay, I won't. And like being able to live on his legacy is like super empowering to me. And again, like he lives in me, he lives in Clint, he lives in his family, he lives in all of his grandkids, his great grandkids, and his great great grandkids. Like that's cool to me.
Well, big picture here, that's exactly what it's all about. That's what we're doing right now. We're all living through each other and like impacting people. And then, as life goes on and we go away, but we don't really go away kind of thing. We're all connected. It's just magic.
No, for sure it does. And did you think that when we were going to film this episode today of Parts Girl Podcast that we were going to talk about reincarnation and dogs? Like, look at that. That's going to be the title of this episode, right?
And I made Jordan cry.
Yeah, that's right. The one time Jordan cried on a podcast in front of the entire world.
No, but it's your
oh my gosh,
you're human and it's like real. And I'm so glad you shared that with me because it really. I was hoping for this, like when I was thinking about our conversation, just because we've had a few. I was like, I know this is going to go deeper, and I'm like, I want it to go and open up something that's other than just auto and. It's all, it goes back to how we're connected. So.
For sure it does. And just like, I know we've kind of like wound this back to what we do at ASOTU so many times, but like, that's what we're about. Like, again, like, okay, love people more than you love cars. What's more than cars for you? What's your story? What is the untold stories within automotive retail? Like all that stuff. And I think when you really realize what your more than cars moment is, or what your more than cars purpose is, then that's when you realize that it's not about a car. It's not about a part. It's not about oil in an engine. Well, I mean, it is about that. You want oil in the engine.
Yeah.
But like it's more than that. It's about the people. It's about the stories. It's about the connections. And I think it's about helping people be better than when you found them.
But that's it. That just summed it all up. I have nothing to add.
Roll credits.
You got it. Okay, so just to wrap it up, like, because I feel like so many people know who you are because you're just so awesome. But
Well, I don't think so, but thank you. I appreciate that, Kaylee.
I'm just gonna let everyone know. Reach out to Jordan, connect with him on LinkedIn because
please do. I'll send you a video.
Better. His content's great. He's a great person, and so just find Jordan Cox on LinkedIn. That's probably
right.
that's probably the best way to find you, right? I'm just assuming.
Just do it. They can request to connect. I'll send them a crazy video of me saying hi. Like that's it. They'll get the red carpet experience, Kaylee. Yeah. And like I've said this to you already, but like Kaylee, keep doing this. Keep being great because you are changing people's lives like you've changed my life. Like I'm not gonna say you changed it like to the point where I was like, moving in a bad direction, now moving in a different direction. But like seriously, you've made so many experiences great for so many people, and like I hope you see the impact you're making.
Oh, you. I'll keep doing it because I do really enjoy these kind of conversations. So
you're great at it. So thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. PartsEdge, the power tool for your parts department. We hope you're leaving feeling motivated, challenged, and inspired.